The question now hanging over the city of Cleveland is bigger than a single preseason game, bigger than a box score, and bigger than any coach's carefully measured words at a press conference. It's about what happens when undeniable performance collides headfirst with politics, pecking orders, and the fragile balance of power inside an NFL locker room. Shadore Sanders did more than show flashes in his first extended NFL action. He executed with a calm and confidence that veterans spend years trying to master, and he did it while wearing the weight of expectations that no other rookie quarterback in this draft class carried. That weight isn't just about being a mid-round pick with little to no guarantees. It's about being the son of Deion "Primetime" Sanders, a man whose shadow stretches across football history and culture alike. Every throw Shedeur makes, every rep he takes, is magnified, dissected, celebrated, and criticized in ways that most rookies never experience. And yet, when the lights came on and the Panthers' defense sent real pressure, Shadore Sanders didn't just survive, he thrived. 2 touchdowns, no giveaways, and the kind of pocket movement that silenced doubts before igniting them again the next morning when head coach Kevin Stefanski refused to acknowledge what everyone had just seen with their own eyes. Instead of confirmation, fans got evasion. Instead of clarity, they got coach speak about evaluation, process, and patience. Those words are meant to soothe, to remind people that development takes time. But to a city like Cleveland, they sounded like excuses, a delay tactic in a town that has run out of patience after decades of quarterback false starts. The Browns didn't just draft another quarterback. They stumbled into a story, one where performance demands opportunity and where hesitation looks like fear. If Shadore Sanders hasn't earned first-team reps after a night like that, what does it even take? The truth is hidden under layers of context. Quarterback depth charts are rarely as simple as the best man playing. They're shaped by money, contracts, prior commitments, and locker room politics. Kenny Pickett arrived with the expectation of being the guy brought in with starter money. Dillon Gabriel is a project they've invested time and resources into. Joe Flacco, though aging, is a trusted veteran who once steadied this team when chaos reigned. And then there's Sanders, the 5th rounder, with a famous last name, minimal financial investment, and a tidal wave of media attention. That combination makes him dangerous, not just to opposing defenses, but to the carefully constructed hierarchy inside the Browns building. Stefanski knows what unleashing him with the first-team offense means. It isn't just about evaluating football skill anymore. It's about igniting a quarterback controversy the second Sanders shows chemistry with Amari Cooper or hits David Njoku in stride. It's about explaining to veterans why the rookie with no skins on the wall is getting snaps that were supposed to belong to others. And it's about bracing for the circus that comes with Deion Sanders' son taking command of an NFL offense. But here's the problem. The circus is already here. When Deion tweets 3 words, millions of people see it. When Hall of Famer Michael Irvin posts film clips of Shadore handling a 3rd and 8 backed up on his own 8-yard line, the credibility of that endorsement echoes louder than any coach's press conference. Irvin didn't highlight the touchdowns. He highlighted the pressure moment, the kind of down and distance that decides whether a quarterback belongs in this league. Shadore read the field, made the right throw, and executed cleanly. That wasn't just a rookie making a lucky play. That was a quarterback proving he can handle NFL football in its rawest form, and Irvin stamped it publicly, essentially daring the Browns to acknowledge it. Fans saw it, analysts saw it, former players saw it. But inside the Browns building, Stefanski seemed determined to downplay it. Evaluation mode, he called it. Patience, he reminded everyone. To some, that sounded reasonable. To most, it sounded like denial. Because Cleveland has lived through this cycle too many times before. They've seen quarterbacks arrive with hype, they've seen coaches hedge their bets, and they've seen opportunities slip through the cracks because someone wanted to protect a depth chart rather than chase the future staring them in the face. Friday night wasn't just another preseason game, it was a revelation. The stats were strong, but the tape was stronger. Sanders slid away from pressure with natural footwork, adjusted protections at the line like he'd been doing it for years, and never once put the football in harm's way despite being pressured on nearly half his dropbacks. That is not normal rookie behavior. That is not luck. That is discipline, preparation, and instinct. And it's the kind of performance that should... When the Browns took the field against the Panthers, nobody expected Shadore Sanders to reshape the narrative of Cleveland football in a single night. Yet by the time he walked off the field, the stadium had felt something rare: confidence. Not hope based on hype, not excitement from a flashy play or a broken scramble, but real belief born out of execution. 10 drives, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers, and a composure that made the game look slower for him than it did for anyone else on the field. That's not the usual story for a rookie quarterback, much less one drafted outside the first 3 rounds. But Sanders is not usual. He never has been. From his days at Jackson State to his high-profile transfer to Colorado, the spotlight has never left him, and yet it has never burned him. He's carried his father's legacy without letting it consume him, balancing the magnetism of the Sanders name with his own hunger to carve an identity that's distinctly his. That balance was on full display in his NFL debut. When the Panthers dialed up pressure, Sanders didn't panic. He shifted, slid, kept his eyes downfield, and delivered strikes. When the pocket collapsed, he avoided catastrophic losses by throwing the ball away or taking controlled sacks. When disguised blitzes came, he recognized them, adjusted, and still managed to keep the offense on schedule. That's the difference between a rookie overwhelmed and a rookie ready. It was the kind of performance that normally launches a career trajectory forward. Instead, in Cleveland, it sparked hesitation. Kevin Stefanski's post-game words weren't celebratory. They weren't even neutral. They were evasive. "Evaluation mode," he said, like a coach who wanted to shut the door on a conversation before it even started. But shutting the door only made it louder. Within hours, Cleveland talk shows were buzzing. Social media was in full meltdown mode. Fans weren't asking for a Super Bowl parade. They weren't demanding Sanders be handed the starting job on a silver platter. They were asking for the obvious: give him first-team reps, let him throw to the real receivers, let him stand behind the real offensive line. Let him show whether the poise he displayed carries over against the best competition. That is the natural next step in an evaluation. Anything less feels like sabotage. The Browns, of course, have their reasons. Quarterback controversies divide locker rooms. Veterans who've been promised a shot don't take kindly to being leapfrogged by a 5th-round rookie, no matter how talented he looks. Coaches know that once the door is opened, it can never be closed. If Sanders runs with the starters and lights it up, you can't just bury him back down the depth chart without losing credibility. That's why Stefanski is pumping the brakes, why he leans on process and patience. But that calculation is exactly what frustrates fans. Because football is not just about protecting feelings. It's about finding the guy who gives you the best chance to win. And Friday night, every shred of evidence pointed to Sanders being that guy, or at the very least, being worthy of testing that theory. The timing of it all makes the stakes even higher. Cleveland's next stop is Philadelphia, where joint practices with the Eagles will provide one of the toughest measuring sticks in the NFL. It's the perfect environment to test Sanders against elite defensive talent. Let him face disguised blitzes from veterans who've played in Super Bowls. Let him throw into coverage against all-pro defensive backs. Let him prove whether Friday night was an anomaly or the beginning of something special. And yet, Stefanski wouldn't commit to giving Sanders those opportunities. He said he'd get plenty of reps, but stopped short of saying which reps. That single omission turned the entire fan base into detectives, parsing every word, every tone, every hesitation for clues. Because fans don't want tea leaves. They want truth. And the truth feels delayed, maybe even denied. In a way, Sanders' situation exposes the great contradiction of the NFL. The league loves to market competition, loves to sell the idea that every roster spot is earned, that every player fights for their role. But in reality, the depth chart is often written in ink months before the games begin. Contracts, investments, promises to veterans. All of it creates an invisible hierarchy that performance alone doesn't always break. In most cases, that hierarchy goes unquestioned. But Shadore Sanders isn't most cases. He has already shifted the conversation by doing the one thing that matters most. He put undeniable football on tape. And now every delay, every excuse, every hedge feels like politics, which is why pressure is mounting from every angle. Michael Irvin's film breakdowns, Deion Sanders' massive social media reach, fans chanting his name, analysts openly questioning why Stefanski is reluctant. It all builds into a storm that Cleveland cannot ignore forever.